Dispatches, a collection of opinion and analyses from The Briefing. Today is July 31st, and this is an update on the crisis in New York's prisons and jails. Overcrowding and unsanitary conditions have contributed to the spread of COVID-19 within New York's jail and prison systems. Dozens of inmates have died needlessly during this pandemic. Those affected have been disproportionately people of color. 81% of deaths in New York's prisons since the start of COVID-19 have been people of color, and 59% have been Black. After nearly 3 months of lockdown, New York City began easing its quarantine restrictions on June 8th. In early July, the city entered phase 3 of reopening. But New York never really closed the source of some of our most acute COVID-19 outbreaks, our jails. While New York is no longer considered a pandemic hotspot, prison and jail conditions continue to threaten the public at large as thousands of individuals and essential correctional, medical, and other staff interact with the incarcerated population and return to their communities. The first step is to safely release many, many more people from our jails, but we also need to take steps to keep those people out. Now is not the time for our lawmakers to shift our focus away from the kinds of confinement that create these dangerous conditions in the first place. As long as systems of mass incarceration are still operating within our communities, equality, justice, and public health will continue to be at risk. Therefore, we must prioritize criminal justice reform with an emphasis on what can be done to keep us all safe during this pandemic. I'm calling on all New York mayors to take these immediate steps to achieve release from city jails. Mayor de Blasio especially has an obligation to finally close Rikers Island as he promised to do and massively depopulate the massive jails immediately. I'm also calling on Governor Cuomo to use his commutation power to correct and reduce sentences, release medically vulnerable and elderly individuals, and further reduce the prison population. Finally, I'm calling on my colleagues, the state legislators, to continue fighting for justice and to push back against bail reform rollbacks. Pretrial detention with its racial disparities and health risks predates this pandemic. The cash bail system that existed for years in New York proportionately affected Black, Latinx, and low-income families and massively expanded our jail population. Under the cash bail system, hundreds of thousands of people were held in jail pre-trial without being convicted of any crime simply because they couldn't afford to pay the bail amount that was set. This system, combined with a policing system that targets poor neighborhoods, pushed huge numbers of poor people in jail for crimes of poverty with no way to get out except to plead guilty. Not only was this system wrong, but now amid this health crisis, it would also work to spread COVID-19. Short stays of 1 to 3 days in prison pretrial could lead to an increased spread inside and outside of prisons and would put more community members at risk. Now is especially not the time, but there will also never be a time to give in to the racially motivated, fear-based attempts to roll back bail reform and go back to a system which worked against our communities and led to an inequitable criminal justice system. Our criminal justice system continues to criminalize poverty. It isn't a broken system. The system is working exactly as it was designed, to put people into cycles of poverty and debt and incarceration that are impossible to escape. By passing these reforms, we are slowly dismantling a system that was built to work against our community. As New York lawmakers, we have to prioritize and ensure that everyone in New York has a safe place to shelter and observe social distancing recommendations. Incarceration is not the answer. This is Yulene New,